Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest on the line,
Yes,
Stephen A.
indeed.
Smith.
What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
Stephen A.
How's
Good
everything?
morning, King. Good to see you. How you feeling today?
I'm doing great, man. Hope y'all and all y'all loved ones are good during these crazy times, bro. It's been crazy.
It has been. You know, I watched you yesterday, Stephen A., like I do most days, and I said to myself, man, you know, Stephen A. said that the Atlanta Falcons is the dumbest NFL team, and the head coach, Dan Quinn, needs to go, but I didn't see you giving the greatest NFL franchise of all time, a franchise that you picked to win the NFC East, the Cowboys, any credit for the comeback.
That's Charlamagne trying to mess with me. That's what he's trying to do right there, y'all. Them damn Cowboy fans everywhere make me sick, but they deserve
This timing couldn't have been better.
Oh, my Lord, it was so sickening to watch. I mean, listen, you got five guys surrounding a football. Five guys surrounding a football, maybe six. And they were treating it like they punted the football off to the other team, and they were waiting for the football to just go so they could get better yardage. No, you're supposed to pounce on the football. And they sat around and waited, and that's how Dallas won the game. I thought it was one of the dumbest, if not the dumbest play that I've seen by an NFL team. But nevertheless, Dallas was balling. Dak Prescott, hopefully he'll get his money and the whole bit because he deserves it. So what can I say? Dallas won the game. They got
I want to thank those five Falcons players for social distancing from that football at that key moment. That was very important. Thank you.
Can we move on from football? My Giants suck. Can we talk basketball for a little bit?
Well, no, one more football question. What do you think about these head coaches getting fined for not having their masks on properly?
I think that it's appropriate because the NFL has to be a stickler. You got to understand that if you come down with a few positive tests, it could ultimately stall a season. And so the mentality is that the players are one thing because they out there balling and they're getting tested and what have you, even though the coaches are going through the same thing. The bottom line is you want to send the right message that, you know what, wear your mask. Engage in social distancing to the best of your ability. And the NFL has got to do, they've been doing a great job in doing just that. And they don't want to get lax with the rules because they don't want the season to be potentially compromised. Remember, you're talking about in excess of $20 billion annually that these dudes can make. And they ain't trying to jeopardize that under any circumstances. And that's their mentality. And it's something that the coaches have to adopt. So I understand where they're coming from with that.
Right. Now, the Greek Freak. Let's start with the Greek Freak, NBA. Now, is he moving on? Is he staying with Milwaukee? Is he going to? My son thinks that he's going to the Golden State. That's what my son is betting on that. What are your thoughts on the Greek Freak?
First of all, Golden State, I don't think they have the resources in order to get him. You can look at various other teams. I mean, he ain't going to Atlanta or New York in my estimation. Miami could be a possibility. You never know what Pat Riley could pull off. I personally would like to see him in a bigger market, but nevertheless, it really, really comes down to whether or not the Milwaukee Bucks can get him that bona fide number 2 dude. Middleton can ball, don't get me wrong. The problem is that he's not the guy that you can rely upon night in, night out to do what he did. I think it was like in game 4 against Boston where he dropped like 26 and said, put it on my shoulders. We don't have the Greek Freak. I'm going to handle my business here. He's not that guy on a night in, night out basis. And if you're the Greek Freak, that's what you need because with all of his great numbers during the regular season, the bottom line is that he's compromised as a perimeter shooter. He's not a strong perimeter shooter. And come playoff time, defenses hustle back. They turn you into a half-court offense, and you got to be able to hit perimeter shots. And if you can't do that, you're not going to win a championship. So you need somebody else to be able to do that. That's why he wasn't my MVP. That's why I had LeBron James as my MVP. I was one of the 16 dudes, evidently, who voted for LeBron James to be MVP because he was balling out all season long. They had the number 1 seed in the West. And more importantly, he's got a proven track record. You know that his limitations are not going to show up come playoff time.
Do you think we've reached a point where we've started to take LeBron James' greatness for granted?
I don't think so. I think that a lot of people that love him so much interpret it that way because he can be sensitive to that. And I don't blame him because I'm one of the guys that, listen, I don't find myself to be ultra critical of him. I just say he ain't the GOAT. It's Michael Jordan all day, every day, because it matters to me who you win against and the road to prosperity that you took. And so when you were in the Eastern Conference and you had D Wade and Chris Bosh for 4 years, I just look at it from that standpoint that I understand and respect the fact that LeBron James is great. He's on the Mount Rushmore. I think he's top 2, top 3 all time. I'm just never giving him the edge over Michael Jordan. And because that's the argument that is made against him, people perceive you as hating on him because you won't give him GOAT status. And last time I checked, if I put you on the Mount Rushmore of any sport, let alone basketball, how the hell is that an insult? I'm calling you top 2, top 3 at the worst all time. That's not hating. That's just saying you ain't Michael Jordan, which he is not.
I got him at 4, and I think that's great. I got Michael, Magic, and Kobe.
Magic was a great champion, a great leader, but Magic as a basketball player simply couldn't do all the things that LeBron James can do. And and Magic's the greatest point guard that ever lived. He's a 5-time champion, maybe the greatest leader. And if you wanted to throw those elements into the equation, I'm good with it. But in terms of talent on the basketball court, the type of stuff that you can go and you could take from the NBA to Rutgers Park, for crying out loud, no, I'm going to go with LeBron James over Irvin Magic Johnson.
Now we got to also talk about those Clippers. Now, when we talk about the Clippers, what should the Clippers do? It seems like the Clippers just have bad luck. There's bad juju. There's something wrong with the Clippers.
Stand pat. Don't change a thing. They choked. It was definitely a choke job. Ain't no question about it. Kawhi with the crown dangling from his mirror come into the season. You remember those commercials that he was doing for New Balance? The crown dangling from his vehicle, the convertible. There's a new king that's arrived in LA. All of this stuff. We were looking forward to this all year long. Well, LeBron handled his business. You didn't. You didn't show up. You had a 3-1 lead. Jamal Murray put on a show. The Joker put on a show. They won games, 5, 6, and 7. They took you out. Jamal Murray drops 42 in game 7. You're supposed to be an elite defensive team. If you're struggling offensively, okay, fine. How the hell does that explain him giving it to you in a game 7? Him, Paul George, love Paul George. That's my man right there. But it was a choke job by everybody involved. What I would say to you is this. I'm the billionaire Steve Ballmer. I got a team in in LA. Everybody wants to be in LA. We don't like the taxes in LA, but we love being in LA. That's a weather tax right there. Ain't nobody trying to leave. I'm going to sit up there. I'm going to stand pat. I'm going to say, all right, it was the bubble. Season got interrupted, stymied the momentum. Some of y'all didn't even want to be here. You wasn't focused. Lou Williams, 2 top 6 man of the year. We all know Lemon Pepper Lou. We know what happened with Magic City, him going there. That wasn't smart, all right? But he's a good brother, and the people make mistakes. You move on from there. They got the talent. I make them stand pat. I keep everybody in place, including the coaches, and I let them know, you love LA? Look at this city. You want to leave? Because I promise you, you don't win this year, I'm getting all of y'all up out of here. That's what I do, and I put them on notice, and I make every single person on that team come back to claim what should have been theirs in a lot of people's eyes this season.
Do you think that if the Lakers win this year, which I think they will, is there an asterisk on the championship this season?
Not to me, because okay. I think, and y'all can appreciate this, there's something to be said about exercising a proper level of discipline. Yeah, we understand that there was a pandemic and it stalled the season, but remember, the season was never canceled. It was postponed. You knew that. So it's incumbent upon you to stay ready, be prepared, do what you got to do to come ready to ball. You had 8 regular season games to end the season. Then you had the postseason, and everyone had to deal with the same identical conditions. Everybody had to be in the bubble. People weren't allowed to leave, couldn't have family or loved ones visiting for the first month and a half and all of this other stuff. It was just you and basketball and each other. The bottom line is these were really, really tough circumstances. And as far as I'm concerned, the champion that comes out of this is a legitimate bona fide champion because it was feeding off of what transpired during the regular season before the season was stalled. The Lakers were a number 1 seed. Denver was a number 3 seed. Miami was a 4 or 5 seed. Boston was a 3 seed. So when you look at what was going on, the style of play that took place, the very things that we witnessed happen in the postseason outside of Denver knocking off the Clippers is very, very conceivable. If you look at all the rounds and what transpired, everything that happened was something that you could sit up there and say, even if there was no stall in the season, that possibly or likely would have happened. The only shock was Denver knocking off the Clippers, and Denver, hey, they were the top 3 seed all season long. So they were right there. This is definitely a legitimate champion, whoever comes out of this.
Okay.
Gotcha. Now, but leaving that
Stephen
bubble.
A is here for a reason, by the way.
Yes, HBCU week. I got one more question though. Leaving that bubble, the process of leaving the bubble, do you have to quarantine for a couple of days, or once you leave the bubble, you get tested and you can play?
No. When you leave, first of all, you wasn't supposed to leave the bubble. If you were to leave the bubble, then you get tested immediately and you got to be quarantined if you follow procedure. If you didn't follow procedure like some other cats did, and they'll they sat you out for like 10 full days to make sure that, you know what, you didn't contract the coronavirus and you didn't endanger anybody else involved. So they were definitely sticklers for that. And I got to tell y'all this, man, I don't know if I've ever been more proud of the NBA, because you see, y'all know this just as well as I do in terms of all we've been going through as a society, as a community, and what have you. And to have those issues where play was postponed and then ultimately they were threatening to cancel the season in light of what happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The fact that the games have continued, the fact that they played the way that they played. I'm telling y'all right now, I've been covering the NBA for over 20 years. I've been in this business for over a quarter century. I'm telling you right now, I've never seen so many competitive games in such a short period of time. These cats have been going at it. And what, to me, where they really not appreciated, if you lose, you go home. And they wanted to go home, but you couldn't tell that when they balled. When they stepped on the court, those dudes were scratching and clawing trying to stay because they were all trying to win something. And that's where my profound respect comes in for everybody. And so many times, you see people running their mouths and chirping about young men, particularly young black men. Be disciplined, be focused, act this way, act that way. What did these guys do? They went out there and they set the shining example. But when baseball was having 19, 20 dudes test positive for the Miami Marlins because they were partying in South Beach, or a couple of Cleveland Indians sneaking out to party and didn't even tell their team and stuff like that. We heard about those stories, but they didn't resonate and stick to the American public the way it would have happened had it been these NBA players. Yet and still, they went out there and they did their job, and I just can't say enough about them, man. They've done a hell of a job. They really have.
It feels like March Madness. I wanted to ask you, because I didn't see this yesterday, how did y'all handle the situation with LeBron's son on camera smoking? Did y'all touch that at all?
We didn't touch that. We didn't touch that at all. First of all, I really didn't even know about it. I'm not going to front. I didn't know about it. But secondly, and more importantly, chances are, Charlamagne, I wouldn't have said anything. That's his kid. And I'm very sensitive to stuff like that. I'm one of those guys that I really have a problem with how much people publicize him when he's out there playing ball and stuff like that, because his dad is still playing. And so I don't like to invite that kind of scrutiny on the kid. Let the kid be a kid as much as we possibly can. If you see him balling out there and you want to comment about his game a little bit or something, that's one thing. But I try, I do everything that I can to avoid talking about people's families and things of that nature, people's personal business and stuff like that. If it's unfortunate, you end up in the police blotters. Sometimes we have no choice. But outside of that, you just do what you can to make sure you remind everybody you human first. He's a kid, and obviously it wasn't the wisest thing to do if that happened. But, we've all been there. We've all made our mistakes, and, his dad will handle that. That's not for me or anybody else to get into as far as I'm concerned.
Now it is HBCU week. Go ahead, Yi.
I just have one last question too about Maria Taylor from ESPN and the reporter that actually got fired from his job for tweeting about her outfit. So how much more difficult do you find that it is for women who get scrutinized, who are actually covering sports?
It's always been more difficult for women, to be quite honest with you. I will never veer away from saying that there's not much harder in America than being a black man. But being a black woman obviously is incredibly, incredibly difficult as well. Maria is class personified. She's an incredible talent. She's somebody that I know pretty well in this business. She's a star on the rise. She's got superstar status written all over her. She's got that kind of potential. Unfortunately, that radio host decided to do what he did, and he lost his job because of it, because you just find yourself scratching your head at the kind of things that are on people's mind, and more importantly, their willingness to go out there and just say it. I mean, it's bad enough you're thinking that way, but how about shutting the hell up and not saying a damn word and just minding your business? Unfortunately, he didn't do that, and it made you think about what else may have been on his mind that tempted him to say it. It's almost like he was aching to say something, looking for an excuse to say something, and in his mind, he found it, and obviously he paid a hefty price for it. But when it comes to women in this business, there's so many stars. I mean, Jemele Hill was a sensational talent for ESPN, and I miss her being at the network. Kerry Champion used to host First Take. She's a sensational talent. I miss her being at the network. The list goes on and on. But I would say this, just as black men have to watch every single thing that we do and be mindful and cognizant of the stereotypes and things of that nature that people are going to put out there about us, women have to do the same thing. That's not to say Maria Taylor did anything wrong, because she did not. But it's just pointing out that you got people out there that have agendas, and they're hell-bent on stymieing you at every single turn. Be mindful.
Can you hold on 1 second, man?
They're just giving you an indication of what other people in the positions of power might be thinking, but might be smart enough not to say. And those are the kind of things that you just have to watch out for moving forward. We as black men have to watch out for it. Black women have to watch out for it too.
Now, this is HBCU week, and I'm noticing that a lot of players are going to HBCUs. A lot of athletes are deciding not to go to your typical schools and going to HBCUs. What's your thoughts on that? I love it myself. What are your thoughts?
I'm loving it. I'm loving it as a graduate of Winston-Salem State, which is an HBCU. Obviously, I'm loving that as well. And, you know, it's especially that cat that elected to go to Howard University. He's got tremendous potential. He could be a lottery pick in the NBA draft. So I think that was a great thing as well. And, you know, HBCU week is something that we did last year. We had over 1,200 people registered, gave out $4 million in scholarships last year. This year, over 5,000 people have already pre-registered. And so, I mean, when you look at it from that perspective and think about the kind of opportunities that are available, I tell people this all the time. Me going to an HBCU, I was surrounded by support. And you can't put a price tag on that. You can't measure the significance of that. Just imagine, like I said, y'all seem to have great relationships. That's why y'all show is so great. Imagine coming to work every day with somebody that you don't like, you don't get along with, you don't vibe with, you have no chemistry with. It just makes that climb that much harder. Well, it's the same that applies to young kids, particularly when they're in pursuit of their education. If you go to a university and you don't have that support base, that foundation, those people to be cheerleaders and mentors and to lift you up when you fall, the task or the road to prosperity can be significantly harder to claw your way through. And so for me, going to an HBCU, that's what it did for me. And that's what I try to preach about it to everybody. That's the joy of going to HBCU. People who look like you, people who share your cultural background, identity, and all of that stuff, who know what you're going through, who understand it, who are there to lift you up, to motivate you, to push you. All of those different things are incredibly important. And that, to me, is the significance of an HBCU. Of course, the education comes with it. You're going to get all of that. But that, to me, is what the key is.
When you were in high school, did you always know you wanted to go to a HBCU?
I did not. I was busy trying to ball, and I was busy trying to, scratch my way, help my mom out, because we grew up poor, obviously, in Hollis, Queens, New York City. I know what welfare is like. I know what government cheese is. I know all of that stuff. And so
you went to PS 34 in Andrew Jackson?
I went up. I went to PS 134. Then I went right down the block to PS 192. And then I went to Thomas Edison because my sisters went to Andrew Jackson and Van Buren. I stupidly kept telling my mother I didn't want to go to college. So my mother said, well, damn it, you ain't going to be a bum. You're going to learn a trade or something, because I'll be damned if you ain't going to go to college. So therefore, I went to Thomas Edison to study electrical installation. But then once I got on the basketball team and I had my basketball aspirations, that's where everything changed. And then Coach Clarence Big House Gaines, the legend, recruited me to come there from FIT, believe it or not. I went to FIT for a year.
Wow.
Fashion Institute of Technology. I went there for 1 year. People laugh at that, but you know what? We were the only dudes in the school. It wasn't bad.
I went to St. Joe Command right there on Hollis. I went to St. Joe Command.
That's right. Yeah. So
you mentioned my core. You mentioned my core maker, and I know you got to go on a few, but you mentioned my core maker. How can college athletes committing to HBCUs, change things for HBCUs?
Well, I think it's the attention. I think that the athletes themselves, we all know that sports assist in bringing that level of attention to an institution, university. When you think about, if you think about North Carolina, what you think about? You think about basketball. When you think about Alabama, you thinking about football. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of institutions that offer similar curriculums. But what really illuminates a university in the mind's eye is how they resonate in the sports world in a lot of different times. And so because of that, just imagine cats electing to go to HCU. You going to Howard, you going to Winston-Salem State, you going to North Carolina A&T, you going to, Morehouse and stuff like that. When you do that, particularly if you have any kind of profile, it forces attention to gravitate towards you. And they can't gravitate towards you without mentioning the school that you're attending. And as a result, by elevating that profile, it'll get people to raise their eyebrows, think about that institution. And ultimately, when you hear it's an HBCU, then suddenly you start thinking about HBCUs and thinking about that environment. And all of a sudden you do your research and you see the band, ain't nothing like the bands, bro. I mean, we love that kind of stuff. And so I just look at it from that perspective, and I think it's all about the attention and profile. That's where athletes going to those institutions can really, really help, just raising the profile of HBCUs to highlight that you can indeed get an education from there. You can indeed go up against Ivy Leaguers and smoke them. This is what I do every day. Max Kellerman graduated from Columbia. I graduated from Winston-Salem State University, and I smoke him every day.
Absolutely. I was going to say, how do we make sure these HBCUs get the proper coverage? Because that's the one thing kids are worried about. They want to make sure they get the coverage of some of these other schools, whether it's on TV, so they can get the ranking and they can get in the leagues and they can get those opportunities. I think that's the only fear a lot of these students have with going to a HBCU.
Well, it's a legitimate fear, and that's something that I've spoken about in the past, but how you offset that is by making sure that you go there and you ball, you perform, because when you perform, the attention will gravitate to you. And then you got to hope that student is mindful enough to turn around and say, okay, let me make sure that I mention the importance of being here at this HBCUs and I highlight what it's done for my life, my future, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how it goes about, because you're operating behind the 8 ball from the standpoint that those other institutions, D1 colleges, the big time D1 colleges, they have the television contracts. That's really where it stands out. Even with college football right now, just think about this for a second. Most of college football said, we're not going to take the risk. We're not going to have a season this year due to the coronavirus pandemic. But it ain't stopping the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, the Big 10, ain't stopping them now. Why? Because there's so much money to be made, particularly from the television networks, that they can't help but continue to go forward and play, because to them, it's worth the risk. When you are in at an HBCU, obviously the television networks and what have you, hope they will gravitate towards you, but it's going to be incumbent upon you to perform and to make sure you do what you can to bring attention to the HBCU. I'm on TV every day, and what do? I bring attention to Winston-Salem State and HBCUs every chance I get, because I understand the importance of articulating that message.
You see Deion Sanders is the head coach now at Jackson State University, so I'm sure that brought a lot of attention for students who might want to go play football there.
I'm ecstatic for him too, because he loves coaching. He's been coaching kids, high school kids for some time now. He's passed up one opportunity after another in television because he wanted to continue coaching. I know that for a fact because he's a personal friend of mine. So I'm really, really happy for him. I'm happy for Jackson State. I think it's incredibly great that they hired him. He wanted the job at Florida State, his alma mater, but obviously they went in a different direction. I think that will prove to be a mistake on their part, because I think he can coach and I know he knows his football. But we're going to see, and we just got to wish him luck, and it definitely does serve to bring attention to the very kind of kids that he's been trying to help his entire adult life. So I'm really, really happy for him.
Stephen, a couple more questions before you get out of here.
Sure.
You mentioned Max Kellerman and how you smoke him every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get the feeling that you really don't like Max Kellerman. Like you're really disgusted by some of the things that come out of his mouth. Is that true?
Well, let me say this. It's false. I actually do like him a lot. He is a really, really good guy. But you are right when you say sometimes I do get very, very disgusted with this kind of stuff that comes out of his mouth. And I'm not apologizing for that. That's my man. He's my partner on First Take. He does a hell of a job. He's incredibly intelligent. All of that stuff is true. And we all know this. We can disagree with somebody, and still don't hate them. We just disagree with them. But there are times that he speaks and, it's like he's trying, and I've told him this before, you trying to act like you a brother. I don't give a damn who you are. You ain't that. Mm-hmm. You understand? You don't have these experiences. You don't really know. And so there have been times where I have felt the need to check him on that matter. But that's all. It's like his heart is in the right place. But he's the kind of person that he reads a lot. He's highly intelligent, and he thinks that reading and that knowledge gives him a level of expertise that myself, you, or DJ Envy or anybody else might have. And I'm like, nah, that's not true. There's certain things about our experience you can't get in the book. And I'm not saying he says that literally or feels that way literally, but with some of the comments, he comes across that way. And if I get annoyed, I will check him. But then I will go and I will talk to him after if necessary. And I always let him know, we teammates, I got you. But again, just like you would disagree with me if I said something, about that's relevant to the Jewish community. If I think you said something out of pocket that's pertaining to the Black community, I'm gonna let you know. And I think a lot of times, Charlamagne, he looks at things from a very altruistic perspective. He looks at things about the way, and he admitted this, he looks at things the way they should be. I look at things the way they are. So I'm mindful of saying stuff and promoting and pushing stuff that I think are going to lead Black people down a dead-end path or something even worse. I might know that we're absolutely right, but I'm like, wait a minute. You got to think about the forest from the trees. If Charlamagne is going down, I'm cool with Charlamagne. Well, guess what? I got a lot of respect for this brother. If I see you doing something and I think that that's going to hurt you, even if I know you're right, I'm going to say, yo, bro, marathon, sprint, make a decision. You doing this? That might not be the way you want to go because you might get that off your chest, but it might cost you here. He's the type of person that says, damn all of that. And I'm like, that's easy for you to say because you ain't Black. So you don't know, but I do know. So fall back. And there have been times in our time with one another that I've had to say that to him, but it's always knowing that his heart is in the right place, that he's a really good brother. And I'm happy to be working with him.
Remember when he used to be a rapper back in the day?
Yeah, I heard about that. You always got them Eminem wannabes. You get all of that, which is what I tease him about sometimes. But he damn sure rapped better than me. I never tried to, so I ain't gonna hate on him.
Now, is your OG partner coming back to First Take? Is Skip Bayless coming back to First Take? That's what we're hearing out here.
No, he's not. No,
simple as that. You can say that without a shadow of a doubt.
Max is under contract for the next 2.5 years at a minimum. I think Skip, if I remember correctly, I thought his contract was up. He's about to sign a new deal. That doesn't mean that we can't reunite in some capacity somewhere down the line because there's a lot of things that I got planned for myself. And that's still my brother from another mother. I got a lot of love for him. Remember, he's the one that brought me to First Take. Never forget that. He brought me there. And so, I'm very mindful of that. And we're still very close, even though I always disagree with him. But in the end, the bottom line is that he got his thing going on. I got my thing going on. In terms of him coming back to First Take, I can't see that happening in the near future. But I wouldn't rule out the possibility that he and I will reunite in some capacity down the line. I just don't think it'll be First Take. Right now, Max and I are rolling. We're still number one. And I've been number one in the mornings for the last 6.5, 7 years. So I'm going to roll with that. There's no reason to look in any other direction. But again, I'm not limiting my opportunities to just First Take. But in terms of your question about First Take directly, it will be me and Max. But don't rule out Skip and I reuniting in some capacity in the future. Who knows?
Oh,
true.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us, brother.
Listen, man, let me just say this. Could y'all make sure to send everybody to hbcuweek.org? Could y'all do that for me, please?
Sure,
just let everybody go there to register. Just let the HBCUweek.org. We've already got over 5,000 people registered. We raised over $4 million last year in 2 hours. We're going to plan on doing some big things this week as well, man. I appreciate y'all so much. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Stephen
much.
A,
Stephen A.
appreciate
Smith.
you.
It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.
All right, Trey.